Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We love having you here, and it's our mission to bring you all the latest and greatest tips, skills, and know-how to make you the best that you can be. We know that you have it in you, and we're going to show you how. Now, let's get started.
Welcome to the Para Fair today. And today's story is entitled, Is Your Glass Too Full? So as we begin today, as we listen to our story, very interesting how the story breaks down everything that you need to know about your life and how you should handle your time management in your life. So let's listen to our story. When we get back to it, we'll talk about some things that really are on my mind. And I really enjoyed this story. So we'll see you in a few seconds.
A philosophy professor stood before his class with some items on the table in front of him. When the class began, wordlessly he picked up a very large and empty mayonnaise jar and proceeded to fill it with rocks, about 2 inches in diameter. He then asked the students if the jar was full. They agreed that it was. So the professor then picked up a box of pebbles and poured them into the jar. He shook the jar lightly. The pebbles, of course, rolled into the open areas between the rocks. He then asked the students again if the jar was full. They agreed it was. The professor picked up a box of sand and poured it into the jar. Of course, the sand filled up the remaining open areas of the jar. He then asked once more if the jar was full. The students responded with a unanimous yes. Now, said the professor, I want you to recognize that this jar represents your life. The rocks are the important things. Your family, your partner, your health, your children, things that if everything else was lost and only they remained, your life would still be full. The pebbles are the other things that matter, like your job, your house, your car. The sand is everything else, the small stuff. If you put the sand into the jar first, he continued, there is no room for the pebbles or the rocks. The same goes for your life. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you will never have room for the things that are important to you. Pay attention to the things that are critical to your happiness. Play with your children. Take your partner out dancing. There will always be time to go to work, clean the house, give a dinner party, or fix the disposal. Take care of the rocks first, the things that really matter. Set your priorities. The rest is just sand.
Welcome back from our story. And as I listened to this story, and as I played the story about, I think 50 times. It's not a long story. I played it about 50 times, and as I listened to this story, they broke things down. The things that the professor put in the jars. He put rocks, pebbles, and sand. And he broke them down so that the rocks were the most important things that are in your life. So as you look in your life, think about the things that are most important to you. And I realize sometimes the things that are most important to us, sometimes we neglect those things. We kind of neglect our rocks a lot. We're all guilty of this. Because we think that the rocks, and if you look at any big rock, they're big, you think, they're nice, but they're going to always be there for you. These are your family members. These are things that are important to you. These things are really important to you. The next thing you talk about was the pebbles. The pebbles are your jobs, your house, your cars, things that you kind of attain yourself. Your family, you kind of inherit that, wherever you're born into. But your pebbles are things that you went out and you worked hard for and that you have. And then lastly, he talked about the sand. Sand's the small stuff that happens to you in life. I know I live in a major city, and like small stuff is like someone cutting you off on the street. Someone being rude to you at work, someone being disrespectful to you. These are the small things. And what happens on our daily basis, and what happens a lot to us, is we spend most of our energy in our day on the small stuff, on the really small stuff. I was watching my son just recently. He's playing baseball. And I'm just glad he's interested in playing baseball. And I really don't care what he does, as long as he sticks with it, doesn't quit, and just learns about the game and we work on just following direction and listen to other people. So they had to run around the bases at the practice. All the kids had to run around the bases at like a relay game. And he was doing it, but he was going so slow. It's like he was stuck in molasses. And I'm like, do I get upset or do I be glad that he's out here with these kids getting fresh air running? He's trying. He's not going that fast, but he looks like he's having a good time. First time he ever ran the bases. So as I watched him, I said, do I get upset that he's not going as fast as the other kids? That's the small stuff. The stuff that after we got back to the car is, I'm like, son, I'm proud of you. You finished practice today. You didn't cry. He got hit by the ball. He wanted to cry, but he held it in. And that's what the small stuff like that, I didn't really make a big deal about it. A lot of times I think we spend 80% of our time worrying about the small stuff that happens in our lives. Just recently I was getting some gas this morning and I'm about ready to pull out. And I think a lot of times in life we have all these tests. And I didn't see this car. It just came out of nowhere. And it came right on my side. And as I said, whoa, where'd that car come from? And I realized, don't let it affect your day. Don't let it mess up your day. Because what's going to happen, the small stuff seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we lose focus on the things that really, really are not that important. Really not that important. Small stuff, they kind of get you sideways sometimes. They kind of get you out of control. I know sometimes when we're doing things with certain people, and they're always magnifying the small mistakes that you made. I have people that I deal with on a daily basis, and they're just waiting for the opportunity to correct people all the time. They're small, they're looking for things that just make themselves seem really great and grand. So they're always looking for opportunities to correct people. Small steps. They're not worried about the big things. And that's what they do. They sit around, they correct your grammar, they correct you. Oh, you should do this with your life. You should do that with your life. Oh, you need to manage your way that way. We all have people in our life who are like that. And they're always focused on the small, minute details in everyone's lives. But if you tell them to do something, that's a whole different story. A whole different story. They're not going to listen to you. And I realize in life, sometimes you really have to just focus on the big things. Your family members are the most important things. Just like me hanging out with my wife, hanging out with my son, hanging out with my relatives, my mom and my sister and my dad. Those are the best things. You can't buy that stuff. All that other stuff, you could buy a car, buy a house. You can get those things. You can attain them if you just work hard. But just hanging out with your family and doing nothing, that's the best thing about it. I know just recently we went down to the beach and my son just loves splashing in the sand and whatnot. And the thing about it, it was one of those random trips, which are the best. We just went to check this place out. It's a brand new beach, and we never been there, so we didn't really take much. So I threw a towel in the car and just some little knickknacks. But when we got there, we started walking out there. My son started seeing the water and the sand. He was crunching it and whatnot. And we told him, no, let's not get in the water. Let's not just get up to your ankles and that's it. That wasn't good enough for him. What did he do? He's like, oh, this is so nice. He just plumped himself down in the water and just enjoyed all that water. And we're like, oh, he's got all wet. I said, that's okay. We have a towel back in the car. Small stuff. He's not worried about getting wet. He's not worried about the sand in his hair, sand in his pants, or whatnot. All he's worried about is just enjoying his time with his family. And that's what happens a lot. That's what happens a lot of times. We are so engrossed and just controlling every little minute little detail in our life. I just recently got a person that started working where I'm working. And I was just sitting back and I was listening to them talk all week. And they were just so into the little minute things that make the system run. And I said, that's great. But there's a big picture out here. There's a big, big picture out here. And I didn't say anything. I decided to say, you know what? You focus on the big picture. You focus on the things that are most important to you, and you'll be fine. And as I looked at that illustration, what the professor did with the sand, the rocks, and the pebbles today, very interesting how, like he said, the sand just seems how it just gets into your system. It get little things get into making you upset. Today I had an incident where someone did something and maybe I reacted the wrong way. And I said, it's just a small thing. You can fix that in 5 minutes. I said, but don't overreact. Don't make it a big deal. And that's what we do sometimes. We make the littlest things the biggest deals. I know I was at a stoplight today, and there was this car in front of me. And I was, I'm very patient for the most part. And I was trying to turn, but the car that was in front of me, they didn't want to turn. They didn't want to turn just yet. And it was okay to go. So I had an option to blow my horn, make a bunch of noise, stick my hand out the window, say, "Hey, get off the road if you don't know what you're doing. Get off the road." And I said, "Who is that gonna what's that gonna do? They don't care about you. They don't care where you're going. You got your blood pressure up. You're doing all this hooting and hollering and screaming. For what? What are you hooting and hollering and screaming for? You'll get there. Where are you going? You're just going back to the house and sit on the couch, write down some notes for the podcast. What's the big rush?" And as I thought about that, that's so true. We spend a lot of energy and time of getting upset over the smallest things. Sometimes the smallest things control everything that's going on in our life. Someone says something, someone does this, something happens, and it's really not that big of a deal. And we feel jaded a little bit about certain things. And I'm realizing sometimes that stuff I have to let go. It is so hard because the small things that really don't matter, we think they do. But we don't understand that our family, our jobs, you go from the rocks, then you go to the pebbles. And you have to understand that rock that you have. If you just keep grinding on that rock and keep not paying attention to it, eventually it's going to turn into sand. But if you cherish that rock and you look at that rock and you appreciate that rock, and you don't let things happen to that rock, the erosion of that rock won't happen to it so fast. And that's what happens a lot of times is we spend so much time on the small things, we forget about the big picture. We forget about how we're healthy at this time. There's a lot of people who wish they had your health. And I hear this all the time that, man, you know what? I have everything in the world, but I don't have my health. That's big picture stuff. I hear people all the time, and I tell myself, why are you complaining? Why are you complaining about this? You have no reason to complain. Then they say, I'll give you something to complain about, but it's not worth it. The biggest thing you have to just focus on is the people around you, the people who love you, the people who care about you. Once you find that those people are there for you and care for you, that's what you focus all your energy on. All this other stuff, the little small things, the little flies that come in and try to get you upset, don't worry about that stuff. That's not important. Swat that fly. Just keep moving. Don't even pay that fly attention. And I was talking to someone about that the other day. And I told them, I said, some people don't like being ignored. Some people will get into your life and that's all they want to do is bother you. They just want to bother you all day. And then when you give them a piece of your mind or you talk to them a certain way, they go, I know how to get to that person. And the thing is, it's not that big of a deal. I know myself this week, I was explaining to someone, I said on Wednesday, we're going to have this thing called What Up Wednesday, where everyone gets together and gets out of their little area and we come and we have lunch together and we just hang out just to check on each other's wellness and just see how everyone's doing. And the person said, you decided this? I go, no, the group decided this. And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way that, oh, you deciding things around here? Yeah, I'm deciding things around here if you want to look at it that way. But no, the group decided that way. And I told myself, don't get upset. You know how this person is. They're into the small details. They're looking for little things to nitpick so they can get under your skin. I said, don't waste your time with the small things. Think about the big picture is everyone's getting together. Everyone's going to get together and hang out, talk, and just hang out for lunch for one day of the week because we never do. You get to see people, you get to hear people's stories. That's what it's all about, is just listening to people's stories because you're working. And it's nice to hear, hey, you know what? This is what I'm doing so great today. This is what I'm not doing so great today. You can pick that person up or you can just leave them alone. But as we finish up today, and I have to remind myself and remind you, focus on the big rocks. Focus on your rocks. Like, just don't worry about the pebbles and the sand so much. Your job is going to be there. Your car, they come and go. The sand, the small things. Yeah, don't worry about that stuff. If it blows in your face, the sand, just wipe your face off and keep moving. And that's what it's all about, is moving forward, staying what you need, doing what you need to do, and focus on the right things. Okay? Well, we want to thank you again for joining us on the Para Fair. We really appreciate everything that everyone's saying about the Para Fair, and it's getting bigger and better. And as we say once more time, thank you again, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
This week's episode has come to an end, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.